Hi guys, and welcome back to EasyPy 3. In this lesson you will learn some basic formatting techniques to use with the print function. So let's just jump right into it. To start, I want you to open up the idle program like I have, and I want you to then go ahead and click on File, Open, and locate the Hello World file that we saved last time. For me that's on desktop and in Python folder. I'm just going to make mine split screen, and you can do that on Windows by holding the Windows key and the left arrow key. And on the other screen, you can just use Windows key and the right key, and you'll get a split screen like this. This just makes it easier to see your output while you're working. Now, as you can see, we've got Hello World written here. And we said that the double quote marks are interchangeable. And this is particularly useful if we want to have quote marks in our output. So for example, if we wanted quotes around world and we save that and try to run it by pressing Ctrl S or file save, and then run by pressing F5 or clicking on the run module, you'll see that we get a syntax error. As you can see, there's a red highlight over W, and that's showing you where the error is. This is a really good thing about the program. It shows you where the error is. Now to fix this, what we can do is go ahead and change the outside quotes to a single quote mark. Now if we Ctrl S and F5 to run that, as you can see on the right here, we get the right output with quote marks around world. Now if we wanted single quote marks around world, we just go ahead and do the opposite. So we put single quote marks around world and we put double quote marks. Now if I run that, we get single quote marks. Fantastic. Okay, next I want to show you what happens if we try to put a new line over here. So if I press enter key here and take it into line number 2, and if I try to run that, we get an EOL error. This is an end of line error, which means that Python interpreter was expecting something at the end of the line which isn't there. In our case, it was expecting an end quote mark and an end bracket. And as you can see, it's gone red over here, which is telling you where the error is. Unlike most programming languages, in Python there can only be one instruction per line. So we need to end this instruction over here by putting an end quote mark and end bracket. And if we want another new line, we're going to have to put print down here. So we're going to have to write print and an open bracket. Now remember, we've got a single quote mark here, therefore we're going to have to end it with a single quote mark. And we need to get rid of this quote mark. Now if we save that and run it, as you can see on the right, we get a new line. Fantastic. Another way of inserting a new line is to use the escape and new line characters, which is the \n. The backslash doesn't mean anything on its own. It's just signaling that the next letter should be looked at, as it may have a different meaning. In this case, n means that there should be a new line. So if I go back and I delete all this and write print my name is, and I just insert a \n and then Adam, and if I save and run that, as you can see, there is a new line inserted. Another thing to remember is that since the backslash is an escape character, you can't use it on its own or it will cause an error. For example, if I go back here and I write \, it gives an error. So if I want to use the backslash in the output, I'm going to have to put \, twice. So if I change that to twice, now it prints out one \. A line can be empty, in other words contains no instruction, but it cannot contain more than one instruction. Also, you can just use the print function without any arguments like Ellie told us last time. So if I just go ahead and put a print in between hello and world and put no arguments, you'll see that it creates hello world, but there's an empty line between the two. Whilst you cannot have more than one instruction per line, there is an exception to the rule, in that you can spread one instruction over multiple lines. For example, if I go ahead and delete all this and write print, open bracket, and then I use triple quote, and this can be a triple double quote mark or a triple single quote mark, and then write my name is, and then I press enter and enter again, and I write Adam, and then I close it with a triple quote mark and a closing bracket. If I run that, you'll see that the output is exactly how I wrote it. Now this can be very useful for outputting shapes or patterns. For example, if I go back here and I delete my name is Adam and Let me just draw a quick little square here. Now if I save that and run it, again, we get the pattern exactly how we drew it. So far we've looked at the print function with no arguments and one argument. Let's look at multiple. What do I mean by that? Okay, if I go back here and if I write print my, name, is, Adam, these are now multiple arguments. If I save and run that, it writes out the sentence. Now, as you can see, it puts spaces between the arguments on its own, but we can manipulate the print function with keyword arguments. There are two keyword arguments which we can use for formatting. Firstly, there is the sep or separator argument, and by default the sep is set to space, as we saw above. So if I go ahead and put sep is equal to underscore here, and save that and run it, now it's put an underscore instead of spaces. The other keyword argument is end. This dictates how the line should end, and by default it's set to create a new line, or \n. Let's change that and see what happens. Now if I go here and I just write my name is, and I put end is equal to nothing, just put speech marks. And if I make a new line and write print Adam, and if I save and run that, you see that it brings Adam into the first line. That's because we've changed how the lines end. The final thing I want to say is that you can use both of these things together. So if I just once again go back here and I write hello, my name is, and I change the sep to a full stop and end to a space, and in the next line I write print Adam and a comma, end is equal to a full stop. Now if I save and run that, after each argument is put a full stop and the second line has come into the first line. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of things, so let's review what we learned in this lesson. Firstly, you can use single quote marks if you need double quote marks in the output and vice versa. Lines can be empty, but no more than one instruction per line. One instruction can be spread over multiple lines using triple single or triple double quote marks. New lines can be inserted using the escape and new line character \n. Multiple arguments can be separated in different ways using the sep argument, and the default is set to space. And finally, end of line can be changed in different ways using the end argument, and the default for that is a new line. If you haven't already done so, you can go ahead and try out the things shown in this lesson. After you do that, there is a practice exercise to make sure you've understood the concepts taught in this lesson. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Remember to check the resources folder.